What is going on, everyone? Wally here with another video, and in today's video we're talking about how to beat Crota in sort of a walkthrough fashion. Now, I'll have more of an in-depth walkthrough a little bit later this week, but I am going to give you the basics as best as possible, go over some of the mechanics of the fight, and of course try to help you get that Crota down because he is very, very difficult. So in this video you're taking a look at right now, our setup is actually 631s. We have 3 Sunsinger Warlocks, 1 Defender, 1 Gunslinger, and 1 Blade Dancer. Now, the reason this setup worked so effectively for us is because the Sunsingers had an ability to really take down adds when they spawn. That Sunsinger Super just respawns grenades, melee instantly, and when the adds spawn, it's very, very easy to spam grenades. As you can see, that was what my job was in the fight. I was on add duty pretty much the whole time with our other Defender Titan. So the way we set it up is we had 2 players on sniper duty in the towers. In the towers on the right and left side of the map, you're going to see hive boomers spawning pretty much the entire time. This is probably the biggest threat to your DPS group. Your DPS group are the guys that are going to be shooting at Crota's shield. So initially, what I always do is in the beginning of the fight, there's always 2 that spawn on the left tower. They spawn about 15 seconds into the fight. If you're a level 31, 2 icebreaker headshots will take them out. If you're not a level 31, and if you're a level 30, if you get Defender Weapons of Light Shield, and you get that Weapons of Light Blessing from the Dawn of Ward Shield, it again takes 2 shots. If you don't have anything like that and you're using an icebreaker, it takes 3 headshots or 2 headshots and whatever 1 shot to finish it up. So keep that in mind. The hive boomers are a very large threat. They seem to spawn in between every minute to every 30 seconds in between that window. I don't have an exact timer on it because it doesn't seem like it is timeable, but they do spawn within every minute to 30 seconds. So keep that in mind. That is a big threat. On top of that, in the tower also will spawn a Sword Knight. He spawns after you take down boomers, and he will jump down on top of the bridge, mainly where Crota begins on Crota's initial spawn, and he will move towards either the right or left side of the group, depending on where the group is. So you have to watch for that. So as an ad guy, or a tower guy, as we like to call him, he will have to be watching for boomers and have to be watching for that Sword Knight to be crossing bridge. The initial fight works out pretty simply. In the beginning of the fight, you start in the summoning crystal. We like to place our backs to the summoning crystal, clear out one side of the group, and then turn back and clear out the other side. We start hitting the right guys first, then move to the left guys. Then we move into the phase 2 of the fight. Phase 2 of the fight is pretty simple. There's going to be a Swordbearer, much like the bridge building encounter you faced earlier in the raid. And of course, you have to DPS him down. Crota seems to be a very time-intensive fight. It's about a 10-minute enrage timer, and you only get an opportunity to get about maybe 5 to 6 Swordbearers if you're lucky in that 10-minute timer. So it really comes down to getting those Swordbearers down as quick as possible. Hence the reason we spam rockets at the guy and try to get him down. Once that Swordbearer is down, we give one of our players, who was a Blade Dancer, we give him the sword and the chalice at the same time. He sets up under the boss. Then we have one player calling out DPS on boss. Then everyone starts shooting at boss's shield to drop him. Just before the boss goes down, his full shield depletes, we'll have one of our guys call out to the sword, move in. That way, the sword meets the boss just as his knee is going to the ground, giving you the maximum opportunity to get as much DPS in as possible. This is super key here, because if you do not give yourself enough time, or if you do give yourself enough time, the boss will get back up and slash your Swordbearer, ultimately killing him, or you may not be able to do enough damage in a sword run. You should, for every sword run, be able to drop the boss's shield twice and get the sword guy in there twice. So every sword you should be able to get in about 10 hits, 5 each time, and then you do that twice. So Swordbearers show up once, and then it shows up a second time. Then after Swordbearers, we like to rotate to the right platform. This way, we do not get hit by the boss when he rotates back to the left. The boss will start in the middle, rotate out to the right, and then of course come back in on the left side, and then back to the middle again. His rotation seems to be pretty standard. It seems to go right first, then back to the middle, then back to the left, although we have seen him go left first and completely wipe us, so it seems to be potentially random. You'll have to mix and match and see what works best for you. After 2 Swordbearers, you're going to get 2 Ogre spawn. Basically, this works in a sort of similar fashion to the Swordbearers, although you have to DPS down these ogres as quick as possible. They spawn in the right and left bottom portions of the tower about 30 or 40 seconds after you get the Swordbearers down. So keep that in mind. Once you do that, one set of high boomers will spawn in each tower, and then after that, it spawns thralls and cursed thralls increasingly quicker at you. So the best way we handled this is we had one set guy on DPS. For me, I was the guy on DPS on bridge duty. I was watching bridge and stairs, protecting my group as much as possible so that they could be on ogre duty. This became particularly useful as a Sunsinger because I would just spam nades at bridge using solar grenades. Really slowed down the enemy from able to get up on the bridge. Also, being at 31 helped me dish out a little bit more DPS against the mobs. If you do need help, we did clear it the other day with a couple more 30s, with 3 30s. So it could be useful to really pick and match some of your group and place in maybe 2 or 3 on DPS duty on ogres and then a couple more on DPS duty for anything else. Then you go right back into Swordbearers and the fight resets. Some of the mechanics are very difficult. If anyone dies in the raid, Crota will spawn an Oversoul. He only spawns this Oversoul when someone dies. So keep that in mind. If no one dies, Oversoul will never show up, although that's very, very difficult, and it's almost too promising to say that. So if it does show up and you believe you still have the fight, everyone needs to DPS that as fast as possible. You really need to take down Oversoul the second it comes up, and you need more than one person DPSing it. You need about 5 or 6. Well, you can't have 6 people obviously DPSing it, but you need about 5 people DPSing it as hard as you can, if possible, to take it out. Other than that, the fight again resets. So in a recap here, it starts with 2 knights, 2 Swordbearers in the beginning. Once those 2 Swordbearers go down, you should have the boss at about maybe a third or even a little bit more down of his health, maybe 30 or 40% of his health gone. Then you'll move into ogre phase. 2 ogres will come out. You have to kill the ogres to get Swordbearers to spawn back again. And then you go back into Swordbearer phase and back into DPSing the boss. The 10-minute enrage timer here is the real key. You are on a timer effectively the entire time. The second you get out of that summoning crystal room, you are on a 10-minute timer. That seems to be the biggest thing that is slowing down groups. Is not the mobs, it's not anything else, it's not the mechanics, it's that enrage timer. So if you do only have 131, I would recommend giving that 31 the sword. He is going to be doing the most damage to Crota. Other than that, the sword and the DPS group need to be on par with each other, because once again, your Swordbearer has to be getting in there the second Crota is going down. So basically, if Crota's shields are at about 10% left, that's when you call out to your Swordbearer to move in. That's basically the way we did it. Once Crota's shields were at about 10%, a little bit more than that, we said, get in there, Sword, go in there and wail at him. Sword can get about 5 hits in without doing any kind of combo, just straight slashes, straight RB slashes. We have operated sometimes with the super. The super does do a bit more damage, and the combo seems to do a bit more damage, but it is incredibly dangerous. So remember, it is a safety thing, but you don't want to give in too much. You don't want to commit too much because you need to keep everyone alive in this entire raid. Honestly, the setup in this raid, we all played topside and we rotated back and forth depending on the position of boss, but it is very, very difficult. This is not an easy fight, mechanically challenged, but once you start grinding at it, once you start putting your head into it, it is more and more doable. So keep that in mind, but that has been a brief walkthrough. I'm going to start working on a text-based, more of a text-based walkthrough for this, where you can see it on planetdestiny.com. I will have a link out on Twitter, but I really appreciate you guys coming in here. I'm working out a walkthrough for the rest of the raid, and I'll have that sometime later this week. But that will do it for me, guys. I love you all very much. I'm out. Peace.